Rain tapped insistently against the towering windows of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, a relentless rhythm that filled the otherwise silent hall. Dr. Carmen Rodriguez adjusted her white cotton gloves and set down the last item from the Harrison Williams donation. It was a gray November Tuesday, the sky heavy and somber, as though the city itself bore witness to the weight of history enclosed within these walls. For the past 3 weeks, she had meticulously examined every artifact that had arrived, following the death of Mrs. Eleanor Harrison Williams. Each piece told a story, yet her trained eye sought something beyond the ordinary, something concealed within the ordinary. With deliberate precision, she opened a small velvet box, deep navy in color. Inside lay a daguerreotype, preserved in astonishing condition. The silver-plated copper surface gleamed under the soft, focused light of her workstation, protected by the original glass that had endured nearly 8 decades. Carmen's pulse accelerated. Photographs from 1847 were rare in the United States, yet a daguerreotype preserved so meticulously was nearly unheard of. The image revealed a young couple. The man appeared to be in his early 30s, his mustache groomed with care. The woman's dark hair was swept into a sophisticated bun, and her gaze carried a quiet intensity. Both were dressed in the formal attire of the period, yet there was no rigid formality in their expressions. Instead, an unmistakable intimacy emanated from the portrait, a connection forbidden in most photographs of the time. Carmen leaned closer, bringing her magnifying glass to the surface. "This is extraordinary," she murmured. After 2 decades immersed in the study of historical photography, she had learned to discern the moments when a piece of art concealed truths beyond the surface. She could feel it now. The secrets of this image were waiting to be uncovered. The daguerreotype emanated a presence unlike anything Carmen had encountered before, a subtle quality she could not yet define. Turning the navy velvet box over, her eyes caught a small handwritten label. The ink faded with the passage of time. It read, New York, 1847 JM and MC. The initials were inscribed in elegant yet trembling calligraphy, as if the writer had been overcome by both nervousness and anticipation. Carmen's heart quickened. She realized that this was not merely a family portrait. Something far more extraordinary lay beneath the surface. The following morning, Carmen arrived at the museum's digital restoration laboratory before the doors officially opened. Miguel Santos, the technician in charge of high-resolution scanning, was already preparing the equipment with meticulous care. At 35, Miguel had earned a reputation as one of the country's most skilled art digitization experts. His previous collaborations with Carmen had led to remarkable historical revelations. "Good morning, Carmen," Miguel greeted, adjusting the professional scanner. "What is it that we have today that is special?" Carmen carefully set the daguerreotype on the scanning table. "This piece is from 1847, discovered yesterday within the Harrison Williams collection," she explained. "There is something extraordinary about it. The image quality surpasses its era, and the expressions of the couple are unlike anything I have seen before." Miguel studied the photograph through his magnifying glass. "You are correct," he said. "The detail is astonishing. Whoever created this image was a master of the daguerreotype technique. We must scan it at 4,000 dots per inch to capture every nuance. For 40 minutes, the scanner worked with precise and deliberate accuracy. Every reflection, shadow, and texture of the silver-plated plate was meticulously recorded." Carmen observed patiently, her experience grounding her. Yet beneath her calm exterior, excitement surged. She sensed that this daguerreotype held secrets waiting to be revealed. "Ready?" Miguel finally announced. "Let us uncover what this digital enlargement will show." The 32-inch screen illuminated the high-resolution image. Carmen examined it with intense scrutiny, tracing each line and contour. The woman's dress displayed embroidery far more intricate than she had initially perceived. The man's brooch revealed a heraldic design of remarkable complexity. "Miguel, enlarge the man's brooch," she instructed. The image expanded, the brooch now dominating the screen. What they discovered left them both speechless. Etched upon the metal was a perfectly detailed heraldic shield. Carmen's breath caught. "It cannot be," she whispered, leaning closer. "That shield. I must consult the records immediately." For the next 3 hours, Carmen delved into the museum's specialized library. The yellowed pages of 19th-century American heraldry creaked beneath her fingers as she sought any reference to the emblem. Finally, she found it. Her finger traced an illustration in the Armorial of New York's noble families. 1834. The heraldic shield was identical to the brooch, a rampant lion on a golden field crowned with a ducal crown, accompanied by a Latin inscription, Veritas et Honor. The shield belonged to the Mendoza Carvajal family, one of the oldest and most influential aristocratic households to immigrate from Spain to America. Carmen's pulse raced as she read further. For centuries, the Mendoza Carvajals had served as advisors to Spanish royalty. In 1847, the year the daguerreotype was taken, the family heir residing in New York was Don Juan Mendoza Carvajal, aged 31. J.M., Carmen whispered under her breath, recalling the handwritten initials on the navy velvet box. Joaquin Mendoza, but who was MC? The question haunted her as her investigation deepened, leading her to a perplexing and troubling contradiction. Official records indicated that Don Juan Mendoza Carvajal had died unmarried in 1851, leaving no known descendants. Yet scattered documents suggested the existence of a secret romance, scandalous enough that it had been deliberately erased from the Mendoza Carvajal family archives. Determined to uncover the truth, Carmen decided to consult Professor Eduardo Ramirez, the most respected historian of 19th century America. For decades, he had studied aristocratic families and unearthed secrets that had never been officially published. "Professor, I require your guidance on a matter of great delicacy," Carmen said over the phone. "I discovered what I believe to be a daguerreotype of Don Juan Mendoza Carvajal from 1847. He appears alongside a woman whose identity I cannot confirm." A tense silence followed. Finally, Professor Ramirez responded, his voice calm and measured. "Carmen, can you come to my office immediately? There are aspects of the Mendoza Carvajal history that have never been made public." His office was located on the top floor of a historic building in Greenwich Village. Carmen ascended the worn marble staircase, anticipation building with every step. The walls, lined with faded plaster and century-old moldings, seemed to guard their secrets as vigilantly as the photograph she carried in her portfolio. "Please come in," Professor Ramirez greeted her. He was an elegant man, his piercing blue eyes observant, his hair as white as freshly fallen snow. His office resembled a labyrinth of books, old manuscripts, and portraits of aristocratic families, their eyes seemingly following every movement. "Professor, before I show you the photograph, I need to understand everything you can tell me about Don Juan Mendoza Carvajal's personal life," Carmen asked, settling into a vintage leather chair. The professor poured himself tea, remaining silent for several moments, his gaze distant as though weighing every word he might reveal. "Carmen," he began, "what I am about to tell you has never been officially documented. Don Juan Mendoza Carvajal had a romance with a woman outside the aristocracy. She was extraordinarily beautiful, intelligent, and accomplished, yet her social standing rendered the relationship completely unacceptable to the family." "Do you know her name?" Carmen asked, sensing she was on the brink of a breakthrough. "Maria Carmen Delgado Eva," the professor replied, rising to retrieve a document from one of his private filing cabinets. She was the daughter of a humble textile merchant, yet she received an excellent education and served as a governess for wealthy families. A chill ran down Carmen's spine. MC Maria Carmen. The initials on the velvet box matched perfectly. "Now show me the photograph," Professor Ramirez said, his voice a combination of solemnity and anticipation. Carmen carefully extracted the high-resolution print of the daguerreotype and placed it on the desk. Professor Ramirez adjusted his glasses and studied the image intently, his eyes tracing every detail for several minutes, as though attempting to unlock the secrets hidden within the silver-plated plate. "Extraordinary," Professor Ramirez finally murmured, his eyes locked on the daguerreotype. "This photograph is the only visual evidence that exists of their relationship." A shiver ran down Carmen's spine. "Do you realize what you have here?" she whispered. "This daguerreotype was likely taken in secret, almost as a symbolic marriage between them." "What happened to Maria Carmen?" Carmen asked, though a sense of dread had already settled over her. Professor Ramirez removed his glasses and looked directly at her. Maria Carmen vanished in 1848. No trace of her was ever discovered. Don Juan descended into a profound depression and died 3 years later, reportedly from tuberculosis. Rumors, however, suggest that he died of a broken heart. The following day, Carmen and Professor Ramirez arrived at the New York City Archives, housed in an imposing neoclassical building near City Hall. They were greeted by Isabel Moreno, a 50-year-old archivist renowned for her expertise in historical records. "Professor Ramirez, it is a pleasure to see you again," Isabel said, leading them into a specialized consultation room. "Your request yesterday intrigued me greatly. Investigating individuals who vanished in the 19th century is exceedingly rare." Carmen carefully explained the discovery of the Daguerreotype and its connection to Maria Carmen Delgado Eva. Isabel listened intently, recording meticulous notes in her specialized notebook. "Maria Carmen Delgado Eva," Isabel murmured as she consulted her digitized archives. "Let us see what we can uncover." She began with birth records before moving to the more sensitive and obscure documents. For 2 hours, Isabel combed through centuries-old files, parish records, and municipal archives, her fingers tracing the faded ink with painstaking precision. Carmen observed closely, fully aware that any document could hold the key to unraveling the mystery. "Here is something of great significance," Isabel finally announced, pointing to a handwritten record dated March 1848. "It is from St. Paul's Chapel. Maria Carmen requested permission to travel to France." Carmen and Professor Ramirez exchanged meaningful glances. "France? Why France?" Carmen asked aloud. The record stated that Maria Carmen claimed to have family in Paris and needed to travel urgently. A marginal note, however, instructed, "Verify with higher authorities." "The most disturbing detail appears in another document," Isabel continued. "It is a municipal police record from April 1848. Maria Carmen was last seen at an inn near the Canadian border, yet she never crossed. Her belongings were abandoned, including a letter that was never delivered." "What did the letter say?" Professor Ramirez asked urgently. Isabel retrieved the document and read aloud. It was addressed to someone with the initials JM. "My love, if you are reading this, it means I could not reach our meeting place. You know our love is stronger than your family's threats. I will wait for you in Paris until you can join me. Always yours, MC." Carmen realized that Joaquin Mendoza and Maria Carmen had planned a romantic escape, yet someone had prevented her from reaching France. Even more strikingly, the Mendoza Carvajal family officially reported that Maria Carmen had safely arrived in France, while police records told an entirely different story. Days later, Carmen tracked down Pilar Ruiz Morales, an 85-year-old woman whose great-great-grandmother, Esperanza, had worked as a cook in the Mendoza Carvajal household. Carmen visited her at Sunset Manor Nursing Home in the Upper West Side. "Mrs. Ruiz, we are historical researchers investigating the 19th century Mendoza Carvajal family," Carmen explained carefully. Pilar's eyes lit up instantly. "Ah, the Mendoza Carvajals. My great-grandmother Esperanza worked for them for many years. She always said terrible things occurred there, but refused to speak until she was on her deathbed." "What exactly did she tell you?" Professor Ramirez asked. Pilar paused, measuring her words with care. "In April 1848, 3 men brought a young woman to the Mendoza Carvajal house in the middle of the night. The woman had been alive yet barely conscious. Carmen's heart pounded as she absorbed Pilar's account. What had truly happened to her? According to Pilar's great-grandmother, the young woman had been confined to a small room in the Mendoza Carvajal house basement. Esperanza had glimpsed her briefly. She was remarkably beautiful, with dark hair dressed in travel attire. Most strikingly, she wore a small silver medallion, engraved delicately with the initials MC. For 3 days, Esperanza brought her food. The woman remained alive but gravely ill, weeping constantly, whispering only one name: Wayne. On the 4th day, when Esperanza returned, the room was empty. Professor Ramirez's voice carried a grim weight. "What happened to Maria Carmen?" "My great-great-grandmother never knew for certain," Pilar replied, her expression tense. "But she saw the family's men loading something heavy into a carriage that night. She overheard them mention the old secluded section of Woodlawn Cemetery, claiming that no one would ever find her there. Carmen's realization struck like a hammer. They had uncovered evidence suggesting a kidnapping, and possibly a murder. Armed with Pilar's testimony, Carmen reached out to Dr. Laura Mendesal, a forensic archaeologist at Columbia University specializing in historical investigations. "Carmen, what you are telling me is extraordinary," Laura said during their meeting in the archaeology laboratory. "If we can locate physical evidence, this discovery could rewrite a chapter of 19th century American social history." For 2 weeks, Carmen worked tirelessly, securing permits from the city and the Department of Historical Heritage. The Daguerreotype, historical records, and Pilar's testimony provided sufficient justification to proceed. On a cold December morning, Carmen, Laura, and a small team of archaeologists arrived at the neglected section of Woodlawn Cemetery. The grounds, partially abandoned, still contained numerous 19th century graves. According to testimonies, Maria Carmen would have been interred in this remote area, likely without a marker, Laura explained, consulting historical site plans. The team deployed ground-penetrating radar, scanning for anomalies that might indicate unmarked burials. After 3 days of meticulous effort, they identified several irregularities in a secluded portion of the cemetery. "Carmen, we have located something," Laura announced on the 4th day. "Evidence of a burial not listed in any official records. The soil disturbance suggests it was performed hastily." With extreme care, the team began excavation. Carmen watched, torn between professional curiosity and the human weight of sorrow, understanding that they might uncover the remains of Maria Carmen Delgado Eva. After hours of careful digging, Laura made a discovery that stunned everyone. "Carmen, come immediately," she called. "We have found something extraordinary." At the bottom of the excavation lay a human skeleton, partially preserved by the soil. What sent a chill through Carmen, however, was the small silver medallion resting beside the remains. Time had blackened its surface, yet careful cleaning revealed a delicate engraving in 19th century script. The initials MC Forensic Analysis confirmed the harrowing truth. Dr. Laura Mendesal concluded that Maria Carmen Delgado Eva had suffered fatal cranial trauma inflicted by a blunt object. Carbon-14 testing verified that her death occurred between 1848 and 1850, perfectly aligning with the chronology of her disappearance. Carmen knew that the story could no longer remain hidden. She organized a press conference at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, presenting her findings to the world. Academic circles buzzed with anticipation, and multiple media outlets clamored for coverage. "Ladies and gentlemen," Carmen began, addressing a room filled with journalists and cameras. "What began as the simple cataloging of a donation has revealed one of the most tragic and criminal love stories of 19th century America." Step by step, she presented the evidence: the original Daguerreotype, historical documents, archival testimonies, Pilar Ruiz Morales' account, and finally, the remains and medallion recovered from Woodlawn Cemetery. The story unfolded like a century-old mystery finally brought into the light. "The evidence is conclusive," Carmen declared, her voice firm yet weighted with emotion. "Maria Carmen Delgado Eva was kidnapped under the orders of the Mendoza Carvajal family when she attempted to meet Don Juan in France. She was confined within the family residence for several days and ultimately murdered to prevent her relationship with the family heir from becoming public knowledge." Professor Ramirez added perspective, his tone calm and deliberate. "This case demonstrates the extent to which 19th century aristocratic families exercised their influence. They did not merely protect fortunes, they controlled the lives and destinies of anyone considered a threat to their social standing." A reporter raised a hand. "Dr. Rodriguez, what became of Don Juan after Maria Carmen's disappearance?" "According to our investigation," Carmen replied, "Don Juan was deceived by his own family. He was led to believe that Maria Carmen had safely reached France and begun a new life. He spent the remainder of his brief life waiting for news of her, unaware that his own family had ended her life. He died in 1851, a broken and heartbroken man, never knowing the truth." Following the press conference, Carmen received threatening calls from lawyers representing descendants of the Mendoza Carvajal family. She remained steadfast. Maria Carmen's story deserved to be told, and her memory could not be silenced. 6 months later, Carmen placed the final stone of a monument authorized by New York City to honor Maria Carmen Delgado Eva. The memorial, located in a restored section of Woodlawn Cemetery, bore an inscription composed personally by Carmen. Maria Carmen Delgado Eva, 1817-1848. Her love was stronger than the conventions of her time, and her memory endures beyond the power that sought to silence her. The original Daguerreotype was given a place of honor in the Metropolitan Museum of Art's permanent exhibition, accompanied by the full story Carmen had uncovered. Thousands of visitors came to view the photograph, learning of a love story that had defied the rigid social barriers of 19th century America. "Carmen, you have accomplished something extraordinary," Professor Ramirez said during the monument's inauguration. "You have not only solved a historical mystery, but also given voice to a victim who had been silenced for more than 170 years." Pilar Ruiz Morales, now 86, insisted on attending the ceremony. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered to Carmen, "My great-grandmother can finally rest in peace." Carmen imagined Esperanza smiling from beyond, proud that her testimony had finally helped bring justice to Maria Carmen Delgado Eva. The centuries-old silence had been broken, and the truth endured. The story's impact reached far beyond the walls of academia. Historians across the United States began investigating similar cases of abuse perpetrated by 19th-century aristocratic families. Maria Carmen's ordeal had sparked a national dialogue on how official history often concealed the injustices committed by those in power. Carmen received invitations from prestigious universities worldwide to continue her research, yet she chose to remain in New York. She founded an organization dedicated to investigating historical cases of unsolved disappearances. Maria Carmen cannot be the only person whose story has been erased by power, Carmen declared in an interview with National Geographic. The Daguerreotype had revealed far more than a hidden love story. It exposed a system of oppression where influential families acted as judge, jury, and executioner whenever their interests were threatened. One spring afternoon, while examining the Daguerreotype once again, Carmen noticed a detail she had overlooked for months. In the background, barely visible in a corner, was a delicate engraving on the copper plate, "Forever J&MC." A smile crossed her face as realization dawned. Wayne and Maria Carmen had discovered a way to be together for eternity. Their love, immortalized in that 1847 photograph, had survived death itself, and the attempts to erase it from history. The Daguerreotype had fulfilled its purpose. After more than 170 years of silence, it had proclaimed the truth to the world. The story of the Mendoza Carvajal family and Maria Carmen Delgado Eva became a testament. True love transcends social conventions, and truth, no matter how delayed, inevitably emerges. Their story became a symbol of historical justice, inspiring a new generation of researchers to challenge official narratives and seek the voices silenced by power. Carmen had established a precedent. Victims of the past deserved to be remembered, and no crime, however old, should remain unexamined. Museums worldwide requested the Daguerreotype for exhibitions on social history and human rights. The photograph became a universal emblem of love overcoming societal barriers and a reminder of the courage required to pursue truth. Carmen carefully closed the case file, aware that her work had transcended mere academic investigation. She had delivered historical justice. The Daguerreotype of the enigmatic couple from 1847 had finally revealed its secret, and that revelation had forever reshaped our understanding of love, loss, and the necessity of preserving the memory of those silenced by history. Maria Carmen and Wayne, separated in life by cruel social conventions and familial interference, had found in death the recognition and justice that had been denied to them. Their eternal love, captured on silver-plated copper, would continue to inspire generations to fight for truth and justice, no matter how much time had passed.